living with trauma and how I am healing from trauma. Talk. The best advice I can give is to talk, exercise and grounding. So today, in the first ever episode of Living with Trauma, I am talking about living with a psychopath. It is a huge misconception that narcissists target weak, vulnerable people because they will be easier to manipulate. They actually go for the exact opposite. They look for people who are confident, successful, attractive, strong-willed, as it makes them look better. But usually underneath, if a person they have targeted has not left after the first sign of abuse, then there is normally an underlying issue of low self-esteem and trauma that has not been addressed. And 99% of the time, in my experience, it comes from childhood trauma. I was never anyone's first. I was always told, if I have to choose, I will choose this person over you. Or, I've been made to choose, so I choose this person over you. It stays with you and makes you feel worthless. And it's one of the things that I've really struggled with. Why am I not good enough? Why am I not enough? And why do you have to choose? Why was I surrounded by people who had to choose a person over me? I've never told someone they have to choose, as I always knew it was wrong, but also because nobody would ever choose me. And the ones who did choose me would try and destroy me. I have trauma ranging over 35 years, and I believe the best way to heal is to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about my story, about living with a psychopath, an evil person who used to let me know that they had killed and would do it again. This is a true story, and is my experience on domestic abuse, narcissistic abuse, coerced abuse, and sexual violence from a total psychopath who was a narcissistic, evil non-entity. He was not human. He was not the first psychopath I'd come across. I'd come across a few, but he was the most sinister of them all. His green eyes were turned black when he was in a rage. So let's start at the beginning, like they all do, with the love bombing stage. We first met around 2015. We met online via Facebook. He dropped me a friend request, and to be honest, we didn't really exchange that many messages to begin with, and I liked that. I hate that intense messaging where you feel you're constantly replying and not actually covering much ground. We decided to meet up and have a coffee, and he lived in a really dodgy part of town, and I was worried about my car being parked, and he found it really funny. He thought I was a bit posh and different. I was studying law at the time, and little did I know that the constant questions he was asking was being stored away for future reference. We drove to the local beach and had lunch. It was a really lovely day. Not long after, small gestures started. Do you like this t-shirt? What is your size? Do you like flowers? What's your favourite flower? I'd love to send you flowers, but I can't as I don't know your address. It's funny, looking back, the amount of information you can give to someone when you are off guard. As a teenager, I was so feisty, a proper little hood rat that took no shit and stood my ground. Even now, I take no nonsense and no bullshit. So it's really weird and hard for me looking back and talking about this, as I don't recognise the girl I am talking about. The love bombing continued, the flowers started to arrive and the constant texting. And I was like, wow, this guy really likes me. I was really flattered by the gifts. And it wasn't big gifts, but small gestures. And then after a week or two, The love word was dropped. I was shocked and was not expecting it. I laughed but got caught up in the whirlwind romance. Then came the suggestion of a weekend to Amsterdam, and he knew he had me in his clutches. We never went to Amsterdam. He didn't even have a passport. We made up some excuse about why we couldn't go. I never knew he was actually on probation and had to go once a week to see his probation officer. He didn't even have a penny to his name at the time, but I didn't know any of this, and it all came out later on. Flights were booked, no hotel, as he already knew he was not going. I didn't even question it at the time and was like, oh well, never mind, we can go another time. We spent the next few weeks just talking into the night, him telling me about his childhood, about being abandoned, and I actually believed he was letting me in. We had so much in common, he made me feel like he really understood me. So let's talk about what love bombing is. Love bombing allows an abusive person to build their partner up before tearing them down. Abusers use love bombing to gain their partner's trust and admiration, getting them to open up, learning their weaknesses, and ultimately using that against them. It is really essential to recognise love bombing. It is not a sign of affection, but it's a first step in creating a toxic and controlling relationship. Some of the signs are: they shower you with gifts. They can't stop giving you compliments. They tell you what you want to hear. They're big on showing affection. They want your undivided attention. They call and text frequently. They get upset when you put up boundaries. You feel like you're walking on eggshells. They expect you to respond to texts or calls immediately. Expect you to prioritise spending time with them to the detriment of your time and relationships with friends and family, or time to yourself. Want to see you alone without other people. Get irritated or angry when you want to spend time with others. They want you to distance yourself from friends and family and isolate you from others, and can request that you end certain friendships, or normally all friendships. I let the psychopath into my home. He stayed the odd weekend. I saw his controlling ways of showing love, as he'd been abandoned and didn't want me to abandon him. I suppose he saw the weak, pathetic person I was, and I was so happy to be chosen, so happy to be wanted, that I ignored all the warning signs. But my gut instinct and the voice in my head was always screaming, no, wake up, look at the warning signs, look at the warning signs. But I ignored them. That small inner child in me wanted to fix the broken parts in him, so I could essentially fix myself. I understood that forgotten child neglected feeling. I wanted to be loved, and I wanted to fix him and fix his broken pieces. I was so wrapped up in a relationship I did not recognise the obvious signs of the love bombing. When he got upset, I wanted to spend time with friends and family and not him. If I'd arranged to meet a friend for dinner, he would make dinner. I believed him when he said I didn't need Facebook anymore, and when I questioned it, he made out like he was not good enough and I wanted and needed other people. Now, if a man said that to me today, I would tell him to fuck off, and the younger me would have done so. But I didn't. I agreed to share our passwords in exchange for not getting rid of my Facebook, thinking it was sweet. Little did I know he never gave me his password, as I never actually checked, until about a year later I noticed that he hadn't given me his password at all. I noticed that he'd removed all my male friends from my Facebook, even family members. And when I questioned it, he said, "It's because you're a slag and I don't trust you." I was shocked by his words, and I was surprised because I'd done everything to make him feel wanted and needed. But when I look back, deep down I knew I wasn't that surprised. The thing is, when you come from a background of trauma and abuse, you're used to being spoken to like shit. People being nice is not part of the course for us. We're used to being used. So even though I was shocked, I really was not that surprised. Around this time, I decided that my law degree was not for me. I think the psychic in me always rebels, as I can't conform and I can't do as I am told. I'm a free spirit who likes to go with the flow, and because I always knew deep down I could not use my psychic ability in law, I gave up after my first year. Everyone in my family were like, "Here we go again, another project or course she didn't finish." And I'm the first to admit I'm jack of all trades and masters of none. But I just don't have it in me. I am here to help others in different ways, and that is to heal by guiding and telling my story to help others. The psychopath was happy I'd quit uni, as he assumed it would free more time for him. But I have itchy feet and I don't like to be tied down to one place for too long. Big world out there, so I want you to go and explore. The psychopath started to distance himself from me, and he decided that he didn't want to see me anymore. At first I thought it was because he'd met someone else, but he had been living a big lie. The psychopath had a long arm of convictions, which at the time I never knew about, and a big drink and drug problem. While I sat at home one weekend, he was in town, got drunk, and threw a bottle at someone, and it hit them on the head. He was arrested that night. So when he decided to leave, it was because he was going back to prison, as he was already out on bail and had skipped probation. The whole time I knew something was not right. My spirit guides kept telling me, showing me things, and I just ignored them, and for a while I completely shut down my psychic senses. During his time in prison, I decided to move to Ireland. I had family there and just wanted a fresh start. I was always running from my gift of being a psychic, running from my past, just running and not accepting anything. So of the summer of 2017, I left and started afresh in Ireland. I started to work on myself and had a good time until the end of 2018, and I started to have bad panic attacks and flashbacks. I actually thought I was being spiritually attacked. Weird stuff started to happen, and I would hear doors and cupboards banging. My dog would bark for hours, and I had to do a spiritual cleanse of the house. But then I felt I was constantly being attacked. Anxiety so bad I thought I was having a heart attack. I rang an ambulance and was taken to hospital. Looking back, it was a warning of the things to come, and in hindsight, well, we all know what we would do in hindsight and do things differently. But this was my spirit guides trying to get a message through to me to warn me. But because I just would not listen, I shut myself down. To be honest, I just did not care. My life was a mess. It was unravelling from suppressed trauma from my childhood, which had affected my whole life. It was bubbling like a volcano. And if only I had not ignored my gift, I would have known that the anxiety was a warning sign for just about how bad my life was going to get.